If you're watching this video, it means that your Audi is still confused about what happened in the chaotic opening sequence of Severance Season 2. Well, you're in the right place, because I want to dissect every single detail that you might have missed. And believe me, there are many. So lay back, get ready, and enjoy some Severance excellence. This might also be your first time hearing my voice. So hi, hello, my name is Deribo, and if you're enjoying content like this and would like to see more of it, especially some really cool Severance stuff, make sure to like and support the channel by subscribing. It really helps me, so thank you very much. Okay, so I'm assuming you've already seen episode 1 of season 2. If you haven't, please be aware that there are heavy spoilers. And even if you have seen it, please be aware that I'm discussing some theories and details that might be very huge plot points of season 2. So if you're trying to save all the surprises to the showrunners, I suggest that you come back to this later. Is this person Helly R or Helena Eagen? To answer that, we have to begin where it all ended. As you know, the innies were on a mission to activate the quote-unquote overtime contingency operation. It was all during Dylan's waffle party. And, well, some parts of their stories were cut off, or you could say their stories were, severed. Well, anyways, let's pick up where they left off because it's really important. As you know, the innies only come back to life once their Audis step into the elevator. This means that their life feels like an infinite loop. So if you went out crying or upset in one workday, you would probably come back with the same feeling within a split of a second on the next day. This is an important concept to grasp because it reveals a lot about the characters. If you're feeling confused, that's totally okay. Let's clear it up. So the last time that we saw Irving's innie was when he was aggressively knocking on Bert's door. So it makes perfect sense for him to come back in that state. Hence,
Dude, are you okay?
or even Mark's innie was the last moment before he shouted she's alive.
He's alive!
Now, both of these line up perfectly. But what about Dylan and Helly? As you remember, we never saw Dylan's last second. We just know that he was tackled by Mr. Milchek, and that he probably left afterwards. Since he was never in the overtime contingency mode, his Audi was never in a shocked state to begin with. So all of this lines up and sounds alright. But Helly's story is quite complex. Her last second was her getting tackled down during her speech. Now, knowing Helly and how she reacts, she's probably super excited to share all of this with the others. Maybe excited is not necessarily the correct word to use, but she would have some sort of heightened emotional reaction to all of this. So even though she's Helena Eagen, she still made a very brave revolutionary decision to alternate that speech. Again, the room was filled with a bunch of corrupt Lumen people, but she did not know that. So it was still something to share. But given the state of the show, it appeared that the last thing that she wanted to do was share her own experience, and she mostly just wanted to listen to what the others had to say. Emphasis on the word listen, because we're gonna get to that in 1 second. From the very first moment that Helena comes back to the severed floor, her reactions seem quite odd. She's panting, yes, this could line up with her last second, but let's analyze what happens next. She's constantly listening to others, so instead of sharing or wanting to share, she's rather quiet and persuasive, and she also wants others to talk first. Mark even points out that they probably shouldn't talk, because what if that's actually what Lumen wants?
Good. I owe him a fucking belt cut. Now tell me.
But what if they're waiting for us to tell each other what happened because they don't know what happened? I mean, what if they're listening?
But Helena's immediate reaction to this is mentioning that the cameras are gone, in a way wanting to encourage them to talk. If that was the only sign, then it would have been okay. But later, she mentions again that Mr. Milchek said there was no microphones in the break room.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
He said there were no microphones in here.
Yeah, he says a lot of shit, so just fucking whisper it, okay?
Knowing the rebellious Helly that we've all known and have loved, she would be the last person to ever care about Lumen's authority. So that raises the issue. Why is she saying that? Irv is still on the fence about sharing what he saw. Deep down, he carries a lingering sense of failure because he never made it to anyone else in time. That guilt is eating away at him. making it harder to open up. However, Helena keeps insisting. She's eager to understand what actually happened, but before Irv can fully respond, Mark shifts away the conversation by talking about himself and Miss Casey. During this part of the scene, pay attention to everyone's reactions. It's fascinating. Everyone seems to understand who Miss Casey is and how bizarre this entire situation feels. Well, everyone except Helena. It's almost as if this is Helena's first time encountering any of it. She acts like she has no recollection of what's been going on, and honestly, it tracks. Why would Helena, the real person, ever get involved with all of this if Helly was the experiment and not her? But things take an even more suspicious turn when Mark puts Helena on the spot. She fumbles, mentioning a shirt with quote-unquote "save the gorillas" and something about a quote-unquote night gardener. The slip raises some big questions. The concept of a quote-unquote night gardener feels bizarre only to Irving. Because during Mark's overtime contingency sequence, he never left the house. Even when he briefly interacted with Bricken, on the outside, Mark was overly fixated on discussing himself, his book, and also Gemma. Observing the weather, the sky, or anything beyond what was going on at the moment wasn't a focus. Something he even mentions to the quote-unquote new people who were curious about what he saw on the outside.
So, did you really see the outie world?
Yeah,
How's the sky?
I don't know.
What, you didn't see it?
Well, I went outside for a second, but I was distracted by my brother-in-law.
Seriously? Because we made a list of what we'd most like to see on the outside, and a sky was an easy number one. Brothers-in-law weren't even on the list.
Grazie.
Dylan, similarly, hasn't seen the outside either. His overtime contingency experience was limited to being inside a closet, leaving him with no awareness of the weather or the external environment. That leaves us Irv, as the only person who ever got to truly observe the outside. During his journey to find Bert, Irv had to leave his house, where he encountered the cold and the snowy conditions, and his awareness of those details made the mention of a night gardener feel entirely out of place. In fact, it was so out of place that he chose not to share any details about it in Helena's presence, simply saying that the world of outside wasn't the world for them, which added another layer of mystery to the scene. So, why would Helena even mention that? The pieces don't quite add up, and that is why exactly this scene is so eerie and weird, and leaving us with so many questions. Well, Helena then starts having another curious conversation with Mark, encouraging him to stay and figure out what's happening with him and Miss Casey. Isn't that odd? Helly, who always wanted to escape and was forced into this situation, suddenly wants to stay and investigate, especially after what happened? I don't know, but it's not just that though. She keeps saying strange things about innies, outies, and how Miss Casey was married to the outie Mark. Something about all of it feels off. It's almost as if she's acting different. If you've been watching the show and remember how Helly usually behaves, it's so easy to spot that something's clearly off in this entire sequence. And if that's not enough, here's the nail in the coffin. Imagine being a severed employee. Turning on your computer every day becomes such a routine part of your short 8-hour-a-day existence that it feels like second nature. Something that is almost subconscious. Even Milchick, who's not in that office regularly, can power on Cobalt's computer with one click. Again, it's not his office, it's not his computer, but he still knows where the button is because it's such a day-to-day part of their life. But now look at Helena. Watch how she tries to turn on the computer and how awkward it gets, like she doesn't quite know where the power button is. That subtle moment makes this whole scenario even more unnerving. This episode might have been obvious to some of you, but I saw plenty of discussions online and wanted to compile all the details for anyone who might have missed them. There's so much to unpack in Severance, and if you're as fascinated as I am, make sure to join the community by hitting that subscribe button. Let's dive deeper into this insane story together. It was a pleasure sharing all this with you. I'm Doribo, and I'll catch you in the next one.